So I saw the first Omen in theaters today. And let me say this. I'm not the biggest Omen fan. Like, I rewatched the original for a second time because I watched it, like, years ago. But I wanted to kind of refresh myself again. And I've seen the second and third one. Like, I think I've seen the second, third, fourth, and remake, but I feel like I maybe saw them once, and I have to, like, go back and rewatch them to see how I feel. But we watched the original, and going to see this, I'll say this. I enjoyed this movie, but there was some issues in the movie for me personally. So when we talk about the positives, I think this movie has some good tension in it. It does have some like good tension when it comes to it being creepy at times. I think the lead actress gives a very good performance in this movie. Her character comes off very likable, and I did feel invested in her character. And I like the callbacks to the original Omen, and I do like, and this is going to be a spoiler review, I do like the fact we actually see the Jekyll dog demon in this. Like, you see a little bit at the beginning, and you see what it really looks like at the end. So I thought that was cool that we actually see it. Because in the original Omen movie, you see the bones of the Jekyll dog demon, and they hint at Damien's father being a demon, but they don't overtly completely say as far as a demon. Like, you see the bones, and you're led to assume that he is, but you actually see Damien's father, the Jekyll doll demon, in this, what it really looks like at the end of the movie. You see a little bit of parts of it at the beginning. So I like the fact we actually get to see what it looks like now. And like I said, there was some nice callbacks to the original movie. The negatives with this movie, I felt, was that it did have a slow start to it. The pacing did feel like it was a little bit slow to get out the gate. And it might be for the movie that immaculate for that movie. Maybe for that movie. The first Omen pretty much almost has the same plot as that movie. So if you heard my thing about that movie with it being almost the same plot as this, that would be another problem with this movie. I didn't really care for any of the other characters in the movie. I mean, the lead actress to me which was fine, because if you can make me care about at least the lead character, then that's the most important thing. I think overall she gives just a very good performance, a very, a strong performance. I found the character compelling. Now, the negative things with this movie is that there's this big twist in the movie. And the problem I have with the big twist in this movie, they treat it like a big twist, but I didn't feel like it was a big twist though. Like in the opening of the movie, you see a girl with a black skull over her face, and you don't know who it is. Like tied up, and it looks like the idea that she's gonna be raped by something. And then they go back to that scene later on, and you see it's the lead girl, and you find out she's the mother of Damien, the Antichrist kid in the original movie. And I gotta be honest, I felt like they were treating it as like this big reveal, but I found it very predictable. I wish they didn't. Here's the thing with me: I wish they didn't show that opening at the beginning, because yeah, you don't see the girl's face, but it just felt like they were treating it like it was like some big reveal that people didn't see coming. But I felt like it was just the breadcrumbs, and the fact you had that opening, it really felt obvious when it revealed that. Like it just, to me, I didn't find it to be a twist. Well, I didn't just personally find it to be a very good twist. One where I feel like they have to treat it like some big reveal, because I just felt like you didn't do a good job of making me like feel like that was a big twist, or that like I was surprised by that personally. And even though I like the callbacks to the Omen, there are scenes where I'm like, okay, I don't think, sometimes with callbacks that works, but then I do feel like when you have the one scene where the crazy nun like hangs her when she says, "I'm doing this for this one teen girl character that the lead character becomes close to," and she hangs herself. Well, she sets herself on fire and then hangs herself. I felt like, okay, the callbacks were nice, but I don't think you really need the callbacks. And the whole idea of like revealing at the end that Damien's mother and a girl that she was close to at the church are taking care of Damien's sister, that they didn't die in a fire, because I think it's I think it's revealed in Original Omen that I get that, like, I don't remember this, but I guess in Original Omen it was revealed that he had like a sister that died in a fire. And the problem I have with that is that I understand it shows high stuff. They make that clear in this movie. They make it clear in the later on Omen movies that it's an evil choice when it comes to them. And I'll say this: that's one of the things I liked about this movie is that they showed us like two different type of choices. So this is one of those prequels where I think it does do a good job of kind of enhancing stuff, backstory stuff that in the original movie that didn't go into. So I like that element. But I understand that. But when you have you have one of the pieces at the end show up to Damien's mother, she's in some cabin, and he's like she's telling him to leave, and he's saying, oh, they're looking for you, they're coming after you, and then it ends with him like telling her like, oh, your son has a name now with the family because it leads directly into the wisdom of the family that adopted Damien, and he says so like his name is Damien. The problem I have with that is that I understand you can say they believe they're dead. I get that, but this movie felt like they were trying to trying to like force a sequel, and I just don't really think you can go anywhere with a sequel with this because this literally leads right into the original, and I find it very hard to buy that even though they think they're dead, I get that, and the Chose High stuff, I get that. I find it very hard to buy that you never see them again in the later on movies. Like, I watched the original Omen movie. There's very little stuff there about like Damien having a sister. I don't remember like that coming up in the second or third movie either. Like, there's probably one scene in the original where they say they died in a fire. I get that, but I felt like that it just felt like this odd plot point of keeping him alive feels like this thing where it's like I wouldn't have a problem with that if this wasn't leading directly into the original, and there was something in the original and second and third one, and I think that was the fourth one too, that like ties back to the why we never like again I understand that Chose believes are dead, but I don't buy the fact that we just never see these characters again at all in the later on movies. So it just felt like they were trying to force this movie to set up a sequel, even though there's not really a whole lot. There's not any time between these movies. Like this literally leaves like the movie ends with Damien about to get adopted by the parents you meet in the original movie. So it's not like there's a huge gap between this and the original movie time wise. Like I would get it if there was like a big gap between the two movies. And look, maybe I'm missing some details in the original. Like I did rewatch it recently, but maybe I'm missing some details in that in the second, third, and fourth one. So let me know in the comments because, I make mistakes. Sometimes I miss details in movies that I watch, but it just for me it felt like shoot in. It felt like they were trying to force a sequel, and I just don't think you can go anywhere with how close this leads into the original time wise. Like it really just. This is like one of those prequels where it's not like there's a big gap between this and the original movie. It's like if you did a story with Damien's sister, it would take place on the same timeline as the original. And it even shows she's a little bit. She's obviously a kid in this when they show the scene at the end. So it would take place during like the timeline of the original movie. And I just don't think that. I don't know. I just personally felt like that choice of keeping him alive. To me, I wasn't really a fan of that decision. I felt like you're trying to force this move. You're trying to force this prequel to get like you're trying to force a sequel to continue this franchise instead of it feeling natural. Like I said, I have no issue with it if it wasn't like if this movie didn't end with just like directly. I mean, right off the end and it goes straight into the original. I wouldn't have a problem if there was a gap between the two movies and you wanted to do more stories about Damien's sister. But it's just, I understand the Chose they thought they were dead. I understand the Chose was hiding this stuff, but we don't see these characters ever again. in that timeline of the first three. So I also wouldn't mind if you just maybe didn't make this a prequel to original and you just said this was a reboot and you were like starting over and not connecting it to the original. But overall I enjoy this movie. I think the lead actress does a very good job. I found her character to be very likable. There is one part at the end where after she gets into a car crash with the other characters, she comes out of the car and she's like bending her body. That looked a little silly and goofy for me. I know that moment was supposed to be horrifying, but it came off kind of silly and goofy, that one moment in the movie. But overall, I think she gives a very good performance. And like I said, I thought her character was just very likable, and I did feel for her character and invested in her character. So overall, I enjoy this movie. I would put this up with the original. Like, it's an enjoyable movie. It's not fantastic. Like, this doesn't make me go like, oh, I'm an Omen fan, or this is not going to end up being one of my favorite horror movies of the year. It's not a movie I would go see a second time in theaters. But I would say it's worth checking out once. That's my thoughts on the First Omen.